My dear friends, this is Professor A.G. Iyer with you on this exclusive India BRANDished Superpower Brand India show, the show for the future of India on ENFRAtv, and it's my first take, and we'll try to come to you week after week on subject matter in this country, this nation, our India. To start with, I have identified 7 different areas to address in front of you in quick time, because time is money, time is the essence, and we all are working in time constraints. At the same time, time is definitely the mover and shaker. So it's a matter of times today. The first thing that I bring in front of you is the present global economic situation, predominantly US, China, India, and the European Union. If you look at all of this situation, then I would say that on one side Europe is struggling. Europe is struggling because of 2 reasons. One is the economy has just come in a stage where it is just reviving out of a scene of stagflation. Stagflation is the condition of an economy where there is no inflation and neither there is a deflation of the economy. Deflation is a dangerous condition, but it is stagnant. The growth rates become stagnant, the labor indices don't move up, and therefore the standard of living goes practically down because there is no growth in sight. Stagflation makes the economy go absolutely standstill, because without people's growth, there is no growth in the economy. They are the contributors to your GDP. The per capita has to be the fundamental mover and shaker of GDP of nations. So European Union was facing the crisis, and in between we saw that massive terror, I would say the terror emanating from what ISIS did and what happened with the Taliban in the Middle East, and also groups like Hezbollah and the others. All that groups, including the militancy and the terror in Kashmir in India. All of this has impacted India in a way, but definitely the Europe is before that impacted, because they were not listening to our view, and they thought that all this was just some hunky-dory scene, So Israel has faced the same thing, over there, terror many years. But I feel now Europe is having it right at their doorstep, and they have to find a way to deal with that situation. So they are dealing with the economic situation, they are dealing with the terror situation. So this is probably not a situation which we can be happy about. So Europe is in serious state of crisis, and at the same time, what has happened of late is the way Donald Trump government has behaved, especially Trump himself, because he's been antagonizing the European leadership, and in fact he has also come out hammer and tongs on Merkel, on Macron, on India, and on Russia and everything. And I think something wrong with the current US, something wrong out there. And this is not the US that people want to look at, and that doesn't augur well for somebody, so a nation that wants to continue as a leader. I'm very sure that with this approach, US will no more be in the leadership. So we are seeing US also in a situation where US economy may be doing well at the expense of others at this point, according to me, because an average US citizen is under depth of roughly a debt of approximately $40,000 US, and the rich, I would say middle class of Europe itself is on an average debt of $120,000 US minimum. So this, if you multiply that with 300 million of their population, you'll see the US are under tremendous debt pressure, which is not fundamentally reflected. And on the other side, the scenario for jobs will not increase by just pitching for protectionist policies. So US going protectionist, looking inward, and now literally withdrawing from the COP21 and Paris climate change accord, clearly say the climate for US is no good. So that's the scene. Now comes the point of China. I would say China has a strong economy. Of course, it's seeing lower growth rates because it's got a manufacturing glut out there. It's gone up, but I would always say that China is doing well, for the simple reason that we cannot close our eyes to the fact China has done well in infrastructure. But they have made massive blunder in the BRIOBOR. Without India, there is no BRIOBOR, my friends. That is a road to nowhere, or what somebody famously said, the one belt, one road, one trap. It will be called that if India is not part of that game. And thus, just committing few $1 billion will not work for a project which needs a minimum of $1.2 trillion US, and on the upper side is $3 trillion for the infrastructure. If they really want to go forward with the old Silk Route, And in that scenario, I would put India in, you know. So I therefore, before I answer that, let me come to my next question, because where is India stand? So in all of this, we will see that India is coming in a way out trumps not America, right? So it's interesting when I take the next question. So my next point, viewers, my dear friends, is India the bright spot? Are we the bright spot? We have been labeled the bright spot, but none other than the World Bank and IMF. But are we going to take the certificate of World Bank and IMF, who have always been turncoats, and they have been pulling India down when they wanted, and now they see they have no other way. So I would say respect to only that extent, because I do not agree always with World Bank and IMFs, because they have always favored the governments of the day, right? So we need to go into the analysis whether World Bank has got it right. In my opinion, they got it right, and the International Monetary Fund surely got it right. See, the IMF predicts that India would be in a growth rate of 7.7% over the next year or so. The next year, it would reflect a 7.7% growth rate. I would straight away agree with them. I see the figure to be 7.5% to 7.7%, and even 7.9 if we wish to do well. So that range will be in that region, 0.2 points here and there. But that's what it is. But what is the present scenario? The present scenario, we have reported a GDP growth rate of the last quarter or so at a drop to 6.1% or so. Yeah, that is thanks to demonetization, I would say, impacts, and basically a very bad and poor handling on the demonetization side of the economy, where we did not handle the implementation well. It was a great concept, so I would say the intent and the context was right, but then bad delivery in terms of implementation. So what I said, what always I said on this subject, where I was not with the government in full, has been proved true. Elections or no elections, you may win a victory, but the hard reality is what it does to the economy. That's the one point which actually is a point of, I would say, contest as far as I am concerned. Minus that, I see a very interesting spot for India, that India is on a revival path, literally, on a big mega revival path. And the mega revival path will see the revival of core economy, the infrastructure economy. And that's where I see certain work by ministers like Nitin Gadkari must be praised in the road construction, in the bridge construction, in the work happening in the core infrastructure. In fact, Allah Vajpayee, returning back to it. So I would say, yes, we are doing some good work over there. And definitely we are seeing major impacts coming on, I would say, are there impacts of the government schemes? So I would say, look at the government schemes, 3 years, ground impacts, question, because we had a 10 years of lull. I would not say that full ground impacts are there, but the visible signs of impacting are already rollover, is already happening, right? And that rollover is in the fact that our economy today is looking better. In fact, we are also one of the few countries in the world that's been a victim of terror, and actually terror from across the border. And in that side, we have handled it very well. Of course, I would prefer that our Prime Minister calls it a day and does not allow any nonsense happening in Kashmir. But right now, we're looking at larger pictures, right? So, larger pictures needs larger work. And at the same time, there is a misfiring on the demonetization, because demonetization predominantly was to stop the hoarders, was to stop the black marketers, and was also aimed at stopping all the clandestine operators in the economy. To that extent, it was fine. But when we shifted that goalpost to saying that we will go towards, I would say, a digital India and digital transaction, I think we made a mistake. So those issues are not part of the discussions, but I need to say that basically that was the little point which actually pulled us down over the last 3-4 months. And in fact, if you ask me, last 6 months we have been, post-November we have been in duress because of those situations, implementation side. So I repeated that. So that was my post-demo impacts. Now coming to the point where nation's pride, whether it has been reconstructed, whether it's a new confident saga under Prime Minister Modi, yes, I would say after 13 years post the great Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, gave us a head start in terms of the Golden Quadrilateral, and he would have gone to the river networking. And he also brought Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan of LBS moved to Jai Vigyan, and resultant was ISRO and all got advantage, and also the missile program got advantage. We could actually win Kargil because of the strategies that he had. We did the Pokhran too. All of that, if you look at the whole picture that Vajpayee brought, in fact, a positive mood for the country, a global image of India as a not a pushover nation, as a powerful nation, as an emerging economy, as a very powerful player in the world economy and polity. It was during the time of none other than Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, in fact the guru of our Narendra Modi ji today. And you see what happened. The work that is done in DRDO, in ISRO, in all the programs, including the launch of the Tejas, our own indigenous light combat aircraft. Now it will go towards making aircrafts, and all the satellites that are going up, and including the latest, the heaviest GSLV that has been launched, Geosatellite Launch Vehicle that has gone. Every work that ISRO is doing today, thanks to that great man, that we are seeing it in Narendra Modi ji's time, fructifying in full. So it's a very confident India. And look at what has happened. Few things that happened. We were the first time, we kept ourselves out of the very powerful moves that China did on Obor. On the other side, we developed extremely good relationship with Iran, building Chabahar port. So this entire theory of a kind of a necklace of pearls being circuited around by China, by developing Gwadar and going with the China-Pakistan economic corridor is untrue. And also the Vietnam thing on the South China Sea, because India is also making its moves. So it has to be a negotiating point. This is shadow boxing by two big economies. According to me, they must come on the table. They are the ones who have to come on the table, and they must respect each other. In fact, China has to respect India. There is no question. And this question is different from the times of Manmohan Singh. Here is Narendra Modi, who has made India proud. Let us not mince any words. We have arrived back after Vajpayee's time with a bang, with a full force as a global leader country. US withdrawing from the climate change pact in Paris, and India and Mr. Modi saying that I am hardcore into it, I am part of it, and nobody goes out. It's like after 121 countries, only one country goes out, and the rest are ready with the leadership of India, France, Germany, Japan intact. So we will remember what happened. Everybody said what will happen to the green energy after Kyoto Protocol. So I think the new leaders have emerged. So Trump or no Trump, it goes forward. Israel is also part of it. So there is isolation of United States of America. So in this, the leadership in India of Narendra Modi has to be given some credit. You can't just say that it happened because of nobody. It did happen because of a powerful leadership emerging from India. Surely I would say, I would give full credit to the leadership in China, because it was the Chinese President Xi Jinping who clearly also backed the same thing, that they will back the climate change accord. So basically, let's talk of both the countries, with due respect, that it was India and China which has checkmated. On the other side, there is a conflict of interest between India and China, because we see the US withdrawal from most of the places, and we see that China and India will have to deal with themselves. And when they deal with this, the whole thing is, it's a confident India that is dealing with China, and China must respect that. I'm very clear about that. So situation is very clear. We have no problem. So is it the new idea? So India Brandished, my book, clearly talked about the emergence of Chindia. There will be no Chimerica, but surely there will be Chindia. So Chindia was a concept that 2003 I wrote with my co-author Prakash, the late Prakash Iyer ji. So that remains a point, probably point of inflection, and we'll see how this Chindia concept evolves, because these two countries have to now show leadership in the world. It's very important. So yes, after Vajpayee, I would say we are in the pride zone. My next point that's come: challenges of growth, challenges of job creation. This is absolutely challenging. We are producing plethora of engineers. In fact, if you look at the scenario, we are looking at something like almost like 200,000 fresh people coming into the economy every month, asking for jobs and demanding jobs. That's the challenge that we are facing. And this cannot be done with the services economy. It has to go towards a manufacturing. So what's the answer? Yes, I would say the challenges of this will definitely be only absorbed by a manufacturing revival in India. We have to go a little bit. If China has done 100%, we have to go at least 50% of what China did. That means we need make in India for sure. That's the pitch. And make for India. Make in India, make for India for sure. And make also for the world, because we need an exporting subsequently. But we must look at first indigenizing a domestic market base. We should get companies here, whether they are companies from China, whether they are companies from Germany, France, US, anywhere. Invest in India. It's the best place to manufacture, sell here. We have seen already two major Chinese players in India. TBA, the maker of transformers in Baroda, which came when Modi ji was the chief minister in Gujarat, and also Oppo, which makes its phone in Delhi, right, in NCR region in Noida, with a big factory. So this is what it is. We also saw TCL coming, making televisions. So I think in the future, we'll see, we have not seen this. We have seen the Koreans, we've seen the Americans making cars here, but making cars is no more the game. If the cars are to be made in India, I think the most biggest challenge that I want to reiterate, and for which I will give Narendra Modi government a fantastic credit, is they have announced that by 2030, in India, there will be only battery operated cars, my friend. No other country in the world has announced this. Major step, kudos to them. Fantastic it is. In fact, it's being praised by all over the world. France, Australia, everyone, Germany, worth the name, have praised what vision India had for 2030. And the first praise came from the Bhutanese Prime Minister, the Honorable Leontian Shering Topge. He was the first one to praise it. So we see a small country, but they are carbon neutral, not only carbon neutral, but a carbon negative economy. So praise coming all the way from up, and that's the way forward. So we are looking at no use of fuel, no use of carbon fuel by 2030 for vehicle. So this is what it is. So the challenges of job creation, if you want to make automobile, you must make the battery operated vehicle or fuel cell vehicles, and we should see the future over there. In addition to changing the game in the energy sector. Energy sector should look at more renewables and also clean coal. We cannot do away with coal for 30 years, my friends. So on that I am with Trump. Say, not only I would say the climate change point, but also we need to do clean coal. We can't stop making coal-based power in this country. We cannot stop going out of nuclear. Remember, nuclear is a renewable energy. So nuclear has to give. So here, out of all the points, I would say, okay, we go, Manmohan plan was 60,000 megawatt, 100 gigawatt for nuclear must be the plan, just like 100 gigawatt was the plan for solar. And we must up the ante for nuclear in this country with a lot of indigenization. That will also revive manufacturing. Because where we can deploy people, we can deploy people in infrastructure, we can deploy in hard manufacturing, both of which goes parallel. Huge amount of employment and deployment can be created across these sectors. IT will continue to sustain, services will continue to sustain, but they can't do more than what they have done already. So we need to move this through this direction. That is the solution. So which of the sectors are on the track and which is the problem child? My friends, as I told you, the road sector is on track. Overall economy is on track. The infrastructure, I would say, this moment. But comes here the problem child. It is India's power sector, as I always say. Look at what, and here I am not happy with the Honorable Minister, Piyush Goyal, because he has not performed, he has underperformed. And we must say that very clearly. When China was able to achieve in 3 years 77.4 gigawatt, a head start, when we made the RASM report, Rashtriya Urja Saurya Mission report in REPA, Renewable Energy Promotion Association, and the Inertia Foundation, presented this report to the Honorable Prime Minister. We wanted the 100 gigawatt solar, 50 gigawatt minimum. Prime Minister embraced it. Our report was in the hand of Mr. Piyush Goyal on the 22nd August in Delhi at the New Delhi Municipal Corporation Convention Hall, where I presented to him personally this report. But what has happened? China has always gets this report. Somehow my report is also in their hand through some German sources or some other sources. They caught hold of it and they quickly absorbed. So my own country, our own country, which we love, should have gone 100 gigawatt here. But what's happened? The neighbor has gone 77.4 and we are at 12.5 gigawatt roughly, 12.28 in March, 12.5 gigawatt roughly, which is insufficient, my friends. You cannot run two different races. You have to run the same race. If China was at 77.4, I would have expected India at least to have crossed 25 gigawatt now. So this was the case. We were on the track. We would have done 17 to 20 at least, as far as I know, but somewhere that slowdown happened, right? And there is no clarity in the policy. Recently we had to write to the Honorable Prime Minister on the GST. 18% GST was going to be slapped on the solar. Luckily, Finally, the Finance Secretary Hasmukh Adia declared, no, it will be only 5%. So we are saved, my friends. So the solar movement continues. And I would say the upping the ante needs mega scale projects in the country. It can't run this way. So that's what it is. In addition, look at it. We have got roughly 330 gigawatt of installed capacity. Neighboring China has 1600 gigawatt plus of installed capacity. Right? And you will not believe, just when I am coming on the grid, on this news with you, Hanergy, the company that is a solar leader, has now constructed the largest private sector 3000 megawatt hydropower project in the world in Xinjiang province. And what has happened with this? Basically what it has checkmated the old JP, because the JP assets have been sold to JSW. We have a 330 gigawatt of installed capacity, of which we are only off taking about 150 gigawatt. This has been the scenario, and the scenario will barely change unless and until we use a different picture of looking at, the DISCOMs. I would say the Honorable Minister and the Prime Minister must rethink, because we had a failure in APDRP 1. We wanted to come to the RAPDRP, that was failure, which everybody knows in the power sector, which was the Accelerated Power Development Reform Program. Then we had the renewed one, that is the revised RAPDRP, which was not implemented in full. It was cut short, and then we have seen it emerging as the Ujjwal Discom Yojana and the Uday scheme. So we have to be extremely careful that DISCOMs are not improving their ground reality. While I am sitting in my office in this small studio environment, I would say what's happening is that we in Dombili, in the suburbs of Mumbai metropolitan region, in the central suburbs, we receive power cuts on a daily basis. Load tripping and load shedding is continuous, and these are all unscheduled cuts, my friends. So this is happening in the place where we have 40 gigawatt. Maharashtra has got 40 gigawatt of installed capacity. It is not a surplus state, but a least deficit state. But we know that hard reality is different. Peak shortages in Maharashtra are not less than 5,000 megawatt. It could even reach 7,000 megawatt, but 3 to 5,000 is guaranteed. And so what has to go to the rural will definitely be cut off from the urban, and the tariffs that we are paying is the highest. For example, we pay between 9 to 12 rupees for the domestic tariff, between 12 to 14 rupees for commercial tariff, and you can imagine what type of tariff per unit we are paying. So this is the truth. The truth has to be brought forward, and this whole idea that there is no power cut in Maharashtra and Mumbai or anywhere, this is untrue. Because even the very powerful, very, I would say, capable state of Maharashtra is getting, I would say, power cuts, which is a highly industrialized state of the country. $350 billion plus, I would say now it is reaching $400 billion of GDP contribution. There, the commercial capital of Mumbai metropolitan region produced half of the GDP, $200 billion. In spite of that, it receives power cut in areas where the Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company Limited operates. The Tatas and I would say the Reliance only serve roughly, I would say, about 40 lakh consumers. So that is no capacity, because the whole of MMR region is 2.5 crore people. That is 25 million. So they barely service about, I would say, 10% or 12% of those consumers. That's not the benchmark. The benchmark is areas held by the Maharashtra State DISCOM, and as I told you, the DISCOMs will benefit, they will pocket it, they will go rob Peter to pay Paul, they will do all the cross subsidization continues to happen, and then this will be billed on urban consumers, developing a very inefficient economy. Because remember, my friends, that the lowest tariffs, whether we like it or not, all of us work in the industries. Tomorrow the Make in India will go there. Instead of having a jealousy over there, I tell you, the industrial tariffs of this country are just unviable. It should not be more than 4 rupees 25 paisa per unit. If we charge anything more than to the industrial power, large mega factories of steel, like the 4 million tons Ispat, which is now taken over by JSW, for example, or any other large factory of Mahindra making cars, or the Tata making vehicles in Pune, these factories cannot be supplied power at the charge of 12 rupees and 15. They are national factories. So if we are supplying electricity to them at anything more than 4 rupees 25 paisa or 4 rupees, we are killing them and doing a harakiri, my friends. Watch that, it will take our jobs only, I can assure you that. So be careful, and this is what I am passing on through this message, and that is the care they have to take. The Power Minister has not addressed these issues. Why not? Because look at the 8,000 megawatt of Mundra project, 4,000 megawatt of Tata, and this, it is lying hanging fire with a Supreme Court order, which actually does not allow the fuel to pass through. So these are the issues that will be in front of our face, staring at us with the conundrum that we are facing in the area of solar. We have tariffs which are 9 rupees, we have tariffs 7 rupees, now we have tariffs at roughly, I would say 2.5 rupees, 3 rupees. So how would the regulator match? Public issues will come. They will say you gave the higher price, but it was definitely across a tender. It was a bid. People have to honor those projects for 25 years. Now imagine, will a discom buy power when it is already getting fresh solar power at 2 rupees 50 and 3 rupees? Will they absorb the 9 rupees power? They will ask those plants to back off. And when they back up, what happens? The investor will have to get out. And this is going to be a deadly scenario which the country is not in a position to handle. So solar is also going to face crisis unless these kind of problems are tackled. Because its only way out is the government has to pull in this power at an average cost, failing which we will see that there will be uprisings. There will be a situation where now the prices have stabilized. They will come to the 2 rupees 53, maybe it will go down a little bit more, but this is still sensible. But what you gave, even 5 rupees will not be accepted, the tariff that is there. The 7 rupees and 9 rupees, they can forget. They'll get, no state government will buy this power at that price, especially when both wind and solar are competitive in the region of 3 rupees. Wind also is coming at 3 rupees 25 paisa, 3 rupees 50 paisa. So I can tell you the days of the very big tariffs are over. And if this is the tariff, why we are selling our grid power to the industry at more than 4 rupees 25 paisa? We're charging the industry 9 rupees, 10 rupees, 8 rupees, whatever we want. This is not going to sustain. So that's the way forward, my friend. The umbilical call of the story is infrastructure, energy, digital India. All of this put together will definitely move India forward, and the Make in India theme. This is the game plan that we need to build towards making India a superpower economy by 2022. My India BRANDished, the new India BRANDished that is exactly talked by Modi is what it is. The India BRANDished we wrote in 2003 when Vajpayee was there. He appreciated our plan. That's what Modi Sahab is implementing. I'm very happy. And if we want our India, our Bharat, our Hindustan to succeed and reach the diamond jubilee and be the superpower economy, for God's sake, we have to go back to the power sector. One last word. Neglect of hydropower is very dangerous. Hydropower capacity during Vajpayee's time was 27.1%. Today, the share of hydropower in the economy is not even 12%. It is 10 to 12% region in terms of, I would say, power generation. So we need to be damn careful about this scenario, because you see, China has 600 gigawatt plus hydropower in its grid. India has only 49 gigawatt. Therein lies the story. You know, the GDP of China is roughly 17 trillion US dollars, close. It's already crossed the 13 trillion, but I know they are moving towards the 17 undisclosed figures, massive. They're almost coming closer to the US. They will be challenging the US shortly within the next couple of years. They are right now at $13 trillion, 12.8 to $13 trillion. What is India lying at? India is reaching the $3 trillion. So, and you can see the benchmark both from energy graph, which I told you that China has 600 gigawatt, India has 330 gigawatt, and what is the share of hydro? India has 49 gigawatt, and China has 600 gigawatt. Watch that story. Watch that indicator. Watch that. Do not neglect hydro, because it is not only electricity, it's predominantly water, which actually brings your agriculture sector up, because we know the Gujarat story. Its average growth rate in agriculture sector because of the Narmada has come to about 9 to 10% growth in the agro economy, and that is because of water and also electricity. It will be 24/7 in the rural sector. Many areas South Gujarat get 24/7. Many areas in Gujarat are 24/7, a power surplus state. The other surplus states being Chhattisgarh and Andhra Pradesh. So we need to make our other states also surplus. So what the minister is saying, India's power surplus is wrong. India is not power surplus. India is hugely power deficit, my friends. Our economy should at least have half of what China has. So if China has 1600 gigawatt, India should be at 800 gigawatt. So for God's sake, we don't tell that untrue story to this country. We need to build that much to at least compete. I'm always comparing China. I will say we cannot compare with China. We have to. Even if China is inefficient in production of power, we have to compare it, because even if we discount it by 50%, China has 1600 gigawatt, it behaves like 800 gigawatt. and India's 300 gigawatt is behaving like 150 gigawatt. Watch that whole idea of mine, and that's the way forward. That's the way to succeed. Only electricity, like you won 2009, Modi Sahab, we won 2014, you won this elections in 2014 because of the kind of work in the power sector that you did in Gujarat. The same power sector has to win you the country, but not through PowerPoint presentations of the honorable ministers, not by cosmetic surgery, but by the true delivery at the grassroots level. So this is the only economic agenda that I would say the Modi government must stick to for the next 2 years to correct the course of the power sector. That and then proper governance and this leadership will take them forward. Jai Hind. See you in my next show.